Hi everybody, welcome to the first mentality tip of the 2010 year. Now, as I said, what I'd like to do is progress everybody through or introduce you to an extremely powerful program, and that's really is just what we call the Core Warrior Belief and Core Warrior Value program. This training has already made a huge impact on those that I've introduced this to. And it is not as if we haven't been working on developing good core warrior beliefs and values in the past, but at the end of 2009, I really started, I took a month and I basically spent almost 16 to 18 hours a day really refining and synergizing this part of our program. And what I want to do is, it's a little tough to do in 10-minute mentality tips, but I just felt that there's a tremendous amount of knowledge to be gained here. And I really thought that the quicker I get this out to people and we start laying a foundation, the better off we are. The first thing I need you to understand, what is a belief? Okay, and you know what, let me even start with a more simplistic form of it. There's only one reason why I even give a shit and I'm even going to work on beliefs or values. For most people, they could look at it and be like, what the hell does a belief or a value have to do with combat or fighting? Or they just look at it on a surface level. Let me tell you this. At the very end, and I'm going to take you through a three-step process that I want you to understand for this first mentality tip. The end of that, and the part that I'm concerned with, is the ultimate actions that we take as warriors. Every action that we take, and this doesn't just pertain to our warrior training, every decision you make in your life that leads to an action, everything you've done already today, every action you've taken today or any other day of your life, the only reason you decide to take those actions or do them in the standard that you do them, okay, is because of your beliefs. So if we backtrack, okay, whatever our beliefs and values are and our thought processes are, those are the driving force behind our actions. Now, what I'm ultimately concerned with, of course, is more on the warrior side of it, but this will permeate through every aspect of your life. There's no way to do that. There's no way to do this and not have this affect every aspect of your life. You cannot take actions or want to develop the actions of a warrior and only have that compartmentalized, which means you go to your life and you work your job, and you work your job as Joe Blow, then you come and you do combat training and you're, Joe Smith the warrior and Joe Smith the laborer, you know what I mean? And, they're two separate people. Because then what you're doing is you're developing conflicting beliefs or conflicting standards of action. One day, one job, one place in your life, or one facet of it, and you act completely different because your beliefs, your values, and morals are different. Then all of a sudden you're supposed to just flip a switch and start taking the warrior type actions when you need to. It doesn't work that way. The beliefs and values you have that you set up and establish in your life dictate every single action you take, and they attach the standard of action you take with it. What I am concerned with is elevating your standard of action, especially when it comes to the warrior side of it, obviously. I want to train warriors that operate and live their lives on the level of a conviction. They have extremely high standards set. And the only way to do that is to take the warrior beliefs and values, show you how to work through them, and show you how to attach standards to those values, how to attach standards to your actions. Okay, really develop and demand of yourself an accountability in your life. Okay, it's the greatest freedom you're ever going to have. It's the greatest freedom you're ever going to find, is to live your life with standards, to live a life of conviction. So ultimately, what we're looking for is to affect the actions that we take as warriors. Let's back it up. We go to the beginning of this. I want you to have a notebook or a piece of paper, because as we progress through this, you are definitely not just going to want to watch this and then, try to flip back and forth. When we hit training mentality tip number 20-something, you'll have lost the train of thought. Get a notebook or a piece of paper or whatever, and at the very top of it, I want you to write in the far left-hand corner in a nice little box, I want you to write down perception. Underneath perception, you can write perception, beliefs, and thoughts. Those three things in one little box. Now, when I'm talking about a belief, a lot of people can really delude themselves. If I asked you right now, what is it you believe? People could write down a list of their beliefs. Now, most people, when they write down a list of their beliefs, they don't even understand whether they actually believe the things that are on the piece of paper, or whether they intellectually know they should believe those things, or whether it's just posturing and it's just, if somebody asks them, they tell them these are the things that I believe. So it makes them look really cool. Makes them look like an upstanding, or a good warrior. What I want to get at is the root of it. Understand this. perceptions, beliefs, and thoughts are all pretty much the same thing. Anything in the world that we talk about, you will have a perception of it. Okay, whether you know a lot about it or not, your perception is going to be based off your brain asking yourself one simple question. What does this mean to me? How does this affect me? If you really don't think it affects you and you have no interest in it, you're going to form a belief or a perception of that or have thoughts regarding that specific thing, but you are going to have them and they're going to manifest themselves in the form of feelings. Now, when you talk about feelings you got to understand they operate on three different levels. There's a low level of emotional intensity, which is called an opinion. There's a moderate level of emotional intensity, which is called a belief. And then there's a high level of emotional intensity, and that is called a conviction. So for every thought, perception, or belief that we have, our brain asks itself one simple question. How does this affect me? What does this mean to me? And right away what it does, based off that answer, it's called the pain-pleasure model. Based off that answer, it instantaneously brings about an emotional feeling, an emotional response to that thought, perception, or belief. But that emotional response is going to be on one of the three different varying levels: low, moderate, or high levels of emotional intensity. Those low, moderate, or high levels of emotional intensity, that is what dictates our actions. If we have a thought, belief, or perception about something, and we have a very low amount of emotional intensity attached to that, that is going to dictate the action. We can either decide to do it, not do it. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to us, so we don't care. We can find ourselves taking actions that we don't really care about because we don't really have a standard attached to them, because we don't really think it doesn't really affect us. Things of that can be topics like that. What are your thoughts on recycling? Okay, figure out right away when you think about recycling, you're going to have an emotional feeling attached to recycling. Not the words that come out, that's a waste of time. Get to the feelings of it. How does it make you feel? It's either going to be a very low emotional thing where you go, I don't even really know how I feel, I don't really care, it doesn't affect me. Well, then look at the actions you take when it comes to recycling. You probably don't care. Got a pop can, throw it in the garbage. Who cares? Got a pop can, if there's a recycle bin there, you throw it in there. If there's not, no big deal, throw it out. You don't really care because there's no emotional intensity. It's very low. If you have a high level of emotional intensity to it, you'd carry that pop can around with you all day long till you finally found a recycling bin, okay? And then you'd recycle it, because the emotion you have to the thoughts which lead to the high emotional intensity dictate your actions. There's a standard to those. You see the process? So the top of your page, you should have thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, and a box, and then an arrow pointing over to feelings. And with the feelings, you should have low, moderate, or high, or opinion, belief, or conviction. Okay? And then from that, you should have actions and standard of actions written underneath. So 3 boxes at the top of the sheet, basically going from perceptions and beliefs to the feelings with the right emotional intensity, and over to the actions and the standard of action that we're looking at achieving. I'll give you one quick example. If we're talking about the phases 1, 2, 3, and 4, each one of those phases represents a core root solution to a core root problem that exists in combat. When I say phase 1, 2, 3, or 4, whatever phase I talk about, you should instantaneously, you already have a perception of it. Okay, because based off what you know, but every single person watching this knows what I mean when I say phase 1. What I'm interested in is, what is your emotional response to phase 1? What level of emotional intensity or certainty do you have with that? Because that will ultimately affect the actions you take with and the standards of actions that you can take with that. If you do not have an emotional certainty, an emotional conviction, beyond question, with so much pleasure attached to it, not pain, but pleasure attached to it, with no conflicting beliefs in the way, whether it's a specific belief, a global belief, or an identity belief, with nothing that contradicts that, an absolute certainty beyond question, that is the standard of action that we're looking for in our warriors. That is how you can live a life of conviction and set a standard that is so high and have absolutely zero psychic hindrance or any doubt or any question in your mind about what you would do and how you would act under combat conditions. The whole goal of the Mentality series is going to be to raise the standard and get you living a life of conviction as a warrior, and we're going to do that by going through the beliefs, breaking down the feelings, weeding out any limiting or conflicting beliefs that we might have, and allowing us to achieve a level of conviction, a level of absolute certainty emotionally, which will ultimately allow us to act and take the actions and make the decisions with conviction of an ultimately the warrior that we want to be. Okay, so stick with me. We've got a great year ahead of us when it comes to mentality tips. I look forward to it. And until next time, come what may.